It was challenging.
What was it? I can't even remember what it was.
It was. See, for me, that's not the sound that you make at the unexpected sighting of a boob. The unexpected.
Right, watch this. So a boob's going to go across like that. You see, as a wall, and then a boob, and then someone, a naked lady from the waist up, is going past the wall, but you just see her for a second, and then she's gone again. But she's a very attractive lady with a very nice bosom.
Yeah.
So you'd just be like just sitting in the garden or whatever, and then you see that, and then you're like.
No, I disagree. If I saw that, if I was on my own, I don't think I'd make any sound. And if I was with somebody else, I'd be like, okay, 3 o'clock, check that out. I just, give like a stare or like a nod.
It sounds to me more like...
You're not excited about seeing a boob?
It sounds to me more like a vinegar stroke happening.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing that I don't want to go away. And I'd become like a rabbit that sees a fox. I'd just be like, don't make a sound, don't move. Don't let it notice me.
Just drink it in.
Just drink it in.
Just drink it in.
Just fill
don't
the
let
bank.
the boob see me.
Yeah. Don't make it go. Yeah. Or the fox that's seeing the rabbit maybe. And yeah, you just want to enjoy that.
Podcast.
You're listening to a podcast. You're listening to some really cool guys. You're listening to a podcast. Find out what's find out what's next.
Hello and welcome to 1001 Albums Before Death.
Hello.
Today we're doing 3 albums: the Jam's All Mod Cons,
Coldplay's Parachutes.
Don't say it like that.
Parachutes,
And Purple Rain by the King, Prince.
the artist formerly known.
No, he was from... The artist,
currently then?
The artist formerly known as Symbol, formerly known as Prince.
Yes. Bless his name, bless his symbol.
Is that before or after he started writing for the Daily Mail?
He didn't write for the Daily Mail, did he?
He had his album released by them.
Yeah, but doesn't mean...
Well, ergo,
Okay.
he may have had a secret fetish for house prices and things that cause cancer.
Life's hard enough without being in Coldplay. So why don't you cut them some slack before it's too late? Won't you give this modern a chance? Won't you give Chris Martin a chance?
So, we're going to go straight into it and we're going to look at Coldplay's Parachutes. And I have a little quiz to see
straight
how
off the
much
bat.
you know about Coldplay and inform our listeners about Coldplay.
Well, I'm excited. So.
I equally am excited.
So, this quiz,
A little nervous.
entirely independent and free of mind, is called The Chris Martin is a Nerd Who Worries About the Unhygienic Process of Sexual Intercourse and Washes His Hands After quiz.
Sick.
So, number 1, their first EP was released in 1998.
False.
True.
It's true!
Yes!
The
Pulling
Safety
ahead.
EP, it didn't chart.
Oh.
Number 2, Chris Martin and Johnny Buckland met during their orientation week at University College London.
False.
True.
It's true! Chris went there after going to prep and boarding school. They all went to Red Brick Russell Group unis. Chris Martin graduated in Greek and Latin. Man of the people. Number 3, they wanted to call their band Pectorauts.
What is a petralt?
It sounds pretty Latin-y.
I think Simon's the quizmaster here.
Yes.
Yeah, ask the questions.
I will say true.
I'm going to say false.
It's true! Later changed to Starfish and then to Coldplay. Edgy. The band determined they would fire anyone who used hard drugs.
True.
What? False?
True! Chris also stamped his rock star authority on the band by making it a voting democracy. Number 5, Chris Martin is a relative to at least 2 Conservative politicians.
False.
Everything's been true so far, so yeah, it's going to be true.
It's true! It also means he's still nursed at the teat by his nanny. Number 6, they once said a thing.
True.
True.
False! No one in Coldplay's ever said anything of interest, joy, or red-blooded macho gritty and passion wit. Number 7, Coldplay share links with fellow edgy indie rockers, Keen.
False.
True.
It's true! They also spawn with Hollywood actresses who write self-help books based on questionable colonic practices. Number 8, Chris Martin once had a drink knocked over by a brickie in a pub.
False.
True, the brickie chuckled as he was leaving, and Chris Martin sang a song about the environmental impact of modern architectural design as a scathing revenge. Number 9, Coldplay made their live debut at a garden centre in Milton Keynes.
True.
It's false. Their fellow Oxford-educated manager got them gigs in Camden at a small place. Number 10, final question. American tourists think Chris Martin's fictional character, similar to Harry Potter, and is used in children's stories to reassure young infants with anxiety and bedwetting conditions.
False.
True.
It's true!
Yes.
It's not true.
The children are reassured to know that adults are in a similar situation.
Oh, God. Yeah,
Very good.
alright, fine, Chris won that.
I think, yeah, the
congratulations.
first time.
So my general opinion of parachutes, it is, imagine if you had a person from a greetings card company who was fired for some type of bland card that their latest creative day didn't do, something like Happy Day, something like this. That is pretty much summing up this album with possibly the blandest thing I've ever heard. It's almost like...
Did you even listen to it?
I did listen
Where
to
is
it.
your
listen to
soul?
it?
I've actually listened to it 3 times, which is just to make sure.
And that's what you came up with?
Simon has no soul. Simon, anything that was recorded post 2000, Simon just automatically hates and looks down on.
Actually, 1997. So this, I mean, I will confess, I am a boy of Britpop and indie. You know, young teenage during those heady days, you know, soaring days. And if you look at most indie bands at the time, they had things like songs and musical intent and so forth. And you know, you could imagine it being sung on like a terrace somewhere, and it was just interesting. And then came along these people, and basically music died. It was destroyed. It was almost like they were created by a focus group in a lab that wanted to try and get into that kind of slightly beta male nerdy market, and they thought, who can we create who won't offend them? And also try and put it on like a first or second date, perhaps, when you get back to the girl back to the place, and you don't want to seem like you're some sort of like guy who likes action films and things like that. You want to seem like someone who's like in touch with themselves, guys. You put on a Coldplay album, and she thinks, oh, he's non-threatening. And then basically, you know, you might have, you know, a small kiss, and then she kind of runs out when she realises he's basically
Just like all the
A
rest.
Ken doll.
yeah. It is that level of interest.
Wow, that's the complete opposite to my feelings. And you know this. This is one of my favourite albums of all time. Top 10 all-time favourite albums.
Strong words.
Because it's musically interesting, very interesting. It's got lots of space and dynamic range in it, which what we've been lacking from a lot of the albums we've heard so far. Each instrument has its own place, and they let each other speak, and there's space, and it's interesting, and they all do interesting things with their parts.
Are you a man who enjoys a Volvo 4x4? Are you a man who enjoys watching Tim Henman at Wimbledon?
I challenge you to find a man that doesn't find either of those things interesting or wants to know more about Volvo.
Touche. Are you a man who wears a straw hat in replacement for a personality?
No.
Then I am amazed.
So do you not find this album? It's very
Wet.
It's
Dingy.
Sensitive.
vulnerable.
Oh,
I find it's vulnerable. And
indie's not a word you use with vulnerable.
vulnerable and introspective. And I always think when he's singing, he's always on the breaking point of
Crying.
not crying, but it's like
That's
right
it.
at the top of his range, and I think that gives it the sort of an intimacy and a vulnerability, and
Can I ask,
it's
did
just very
you use this
introspective.
album when you got to go back to your house?
I would never play Coldplay to anybody apart from myself.
Is it more of a self-reflection?
It's not a
record?
it's not a guilty pleasure, because I will openly admit that it's one of my favourite albums.
Did you vote for Cameron before this?
No, James Cameron.
James Cameron, yes, a fellow person who probably likes a bit of Chris Martin.
Okay,
So others,
Miss.
I've wanted a sense check on this because obviously they're a very popular band, one of the biggest selling bands in the world at the moment. So I am not unaware of that. So I looked to see what other people said. Other people have said, Parachutes is ultimately a promising debut for Coldplay. If by promising, I mean promising them a windfall of cash and international popularity, if nothing else, it's harmless and pretty. Unfortunately, it's nothing else. If that's what you look for in your music, by all means go for it. If you want substance, I suggest moving on. And that was a person who wrote on the internet.
Wow.
There we go.
So, okay, right. That's it really cuts through. Chris, what do you think?
I've always liked this album. Generally when we do these podcasts and we have there's one album that dominates and I struggle to break away and listen to the other two. Parachutes have been my album this time. They're all great albums this week, but yeah, this is just it's easy to listen to. It's good background music. You can sing along to it if you want, but it has also got some depth, and you can sit and listen to it and feel somewhat emotionally involved in it. I really like this album. It's a good one. You can play it to your mum. You can put it on while you
shouldn't be able to play your music to your mum.
No, you should. You don't need to limit your music to abrasive or challenging. It can be something that is just enjoyable.
Music's a leveler.
This is the sort of indie band that your mum would introduce to you.
Quite possibly that did happen. My mum might have even introduced me to Coldplay back in the day. But that's not a bad thing. Like,
it's a worry.
What do you want from music?
What's so offensive? What's so offensive about it?
It's the fact that it's not offensive. It's the fact that it is the equivalent of if you go into a girl's house and you see on the wall and it says like "live, laugh, love" or something on like a little sign. It is the equivalent of that in musical form.
Not quite.
That level of blandness.
It's not.
This house is full of happiness or love or something on like a little lit up sign or something. There is little to no offensive opinion about it. There's nothing to question about.
It's not offensive. It's not offensive.
But there is a secret song about stalking.
Well, yeah, there is.
Which I'm gutted that I missed.
Which is even more aggressive to listen to than Hey Jude's Na 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 bit, which is possibly the worst part of all music of the 20th century. It is that level. I actually literally take my headphones off and take it off.
Have you listened to / seen the video for Cream with a K by Iggy Azalea?
You are cooler than me for knowing that.
No, don't know what you're talking about.
Well, you watch that and listen to that song, and then you tell me that Na 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 is more offensive to your ears.
I mean, we reviewed the birthday party before, and at least they, I imagine, had some kind of confrontation with the audience at some point, even if it was a case of they wanted their money back. This has people going to Glastonbury in posh, expensive wellies going, "Oh, I love Chris Martin so much, he's so amazing, this is so intimate."
Yeah, but do you not feel like you're having quite an emotional response to this album?
I am.
I also
anger. Yeah, anger, and surely that's exactly what you're saying you don't get from this album.
I feel that anger is not a great thing to listen to, or to feel, when you're listening to an album based on the fact that you're angry because it's just so bland and lacking in all substance.
I must also respond that I have been to Glastonbury and seen Coldplay there, and my wellies were not expensive, and I had a damn good time watching him. As I said to you last week, I saw Coldplay. He's not a fantastic live musician. He's not a great performer. No, he's not a great musician, but he's a great performer, and he put on a great show. They played Sunday night, the last slot, on the main stage at Glastonbury, and they were fantastic.
So people had already been beaten up and given in.
They did a encouraging, engaging, warm, varied show. They had different people coming on stage at different times. They had different, talk to the audience, engage with them. That's what you want from a performer, a genuine entertainer, someone who doesn't just come on stage and do their greatest hits and piss off. He came on and he put on a show, and he was really good. He sang, he played, he talked, he joked. He stirred some emotions. Had that pound of violence.
The same way of imagine a slightly pound shot Bono would.
I don't think a pound shot Bono would headline the biggest slot on Glastonbury. I think you're
amazing,
not giving him enough credit.
It is amazing.
You're not giving him enough credit.
Podcast.
Before we move on, I also have a Coldplay quiz.
No!
Second quiz. It's an audio quiz today. I like to sing along to albums. I'm a bit of a singer, sing in the shower kind of guy. And I sometimes sit on the sofa with my headphones on. And this album, liking it, knowing the words, I sat and sang along with my headphones on, with my dogs in the room. And there were moments where my dogs paid attention. So I would like to play you a few excerpts, and you've got to guess whether or not my singing induces my dogs to howl. So I have 3 songs to play to you.
Right.
We're going to start off with Shiver. So the question is, will my dogs howl as I sing Shiver? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I wanted to say, don't you shiver, don't you shiver, sing it loud. I'll always
Nothing. No shit. No.
Oh,
That was beautiful.
that's so nice.
I never knew you were a singer.
that top note is really high.
It's a hard one. It's a hard one. Okay, I have two more.
It's almost like you have to be a hermaphrodite to achieve it.
Do you know? Have you ever heard of?
So, go on.
You ever heard of castratos?
Yes.
So it used to be a thing. So
Yeah.
before you hit puberty, if you were a very excellent singer as a child, they would cut your balls off so that you wouldn't produce the hot testosterone.
Your voice never does.
Sing. So you could still sing. So when you grow up, you had the chest of a man, which is a full-bodied sound. Because when we speak, we have low voices, and it resonates. In
Are
your
you trying to
chest,
say
doesn't it?
Chris Martin?
No, but it's just.
Castrato.
I just something made me think. That made me think about that.
It would explain a great deal.
But apparently, it was a very unique sound because they could sing like a woman, but they had the chest of a man. So they had this really full,
Do I need to get my balls out here just
full
to
female sound.
demonstrate my manhood? The next one is spies.
The spies hide out in every corner. You can't touch them, no. Is there a spy?
No howls. No howls.
No house.
Fair dues for
Thanks.
being radio.
Wait, did we think there was going to be howls in that? I didn't think there was going to be howls.
No, you're correct.
I did think there was going to be howls in that.
Oh,
Because
Okay.
I think most dogs would have a reaction to Chris Martin.
The final one, sparks. Howl or no howl?
howl.
Howl.
We've got any howls yet?
I say, oh.
There we go. Chris Martin has inspired greyhounds to howl.
Say, oh.
What a great sound.
Are they both going? as
Yeah,
well?
yeah. They get each other going then and they don't stop.
That is so good.
What have we just heard?
Right, so Simon Stars, what did you give it?
I gave it 2, which I thought was generous, but I can clearly see there is some kind of musical intelligence, but there is no kind of musical passion, empathy for anything other than trying to seduce wet lettuce puppets or girls.
Wow. Chris?
I think it's got wide appeal, good music, got depth, range of occasions. You can put it on in the background, or you can sit and listen to it, and it's engaging. And the greyhounds love it. For me, I'm going to be stingy with my 5s, but it's a solid 4.5.
Okay, and I give it a 5. It's amazing.
You need to take a cold shower. Cause this podcast is making you feel sexual. Give it to me, give it to me. Sexual. Ooh. Yeah. Podcast. Sexual. Ooh.
Purple Rain by Prince. It was released in 1986. 6th studio album from Prince. Thoughts?
I thought it was amazing.
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 He skipped 5 letters and went straight to the E. A to the E.
I think this album's amazing just because it has that classic soundtrack feel. Well, it was a soundtrack, but it did sound like it. You can imagine like every song had its own little scene, and every song told a little bit of a story about what was happening, or the narration of that. And every song almost sounded like an individual little mini album, and you had everything from soul, R&B, pop, funk, rock, like old school blues, melded beautifully into a sound which not one of those things kind of stood out, and it was totally harmonious. It's like listening to this like amazing melting pot of, imagine like a grown-up Michael Jackson.
A grown-up Michael Jackson
Like
in
a
a
grown-up
midget's
Michael Jackson.
A grown-up Michael Jackson in a midget's body.
A more mature Michael Jackson sound. This was it.
Really?
And I thought it was just amazing. And he was well coiffed.
I'm not a mature Michael Jackson, because Michael Jackson had a very mature sound, you could argue. Do you mean, are you confusing his naivety as an adult with his music?
You're conflating the artist and the art again.
I think the two are inseparable sometimes. But it was still quite a mature sounding record, and certainly for me, standing out with things like When Doves Cry, great tune. Mm-hmm. But that was probably the best song on the album. However, the best moment of the album was the soaring solo and kind of crescendo of the whole album in Purple Rain. Mm-hmm. And it goes on for quite a while, but what a finish.
Yeah, I agree the album is great, but it's not as great as it probably could have been. It felt like a lot of it was maybe rushed, or maybe not as much thought was put into it as it could have been. Because so you've got so Let's Go Crazy, great song, and then you've got Take Me With You, Take It or Leave It, The Beautiful Ones, Take It or Leave It, Computer Blue, Take It or Leave It. I mean, they're pretty boring songs, really. And then you get into Darling Nikki, and that's like, oh, it's pretty cool, it's pretty edgy, it's got a bit of a grit to it. And then When Doves Cry,
did you think
great again,
album,
I Would Die For You, Baby I'm a Star, not that great, but then Purple Rain.
Yeah.
So I think you've only got 4 good
but
songs
again,
on this album.
I think you need to look at also the fact that if you take them as like, it's kind of like the sound of an album, but then if you think of this album as a soundtrack and you heard these songs in a soundtrack, do you think there's like another impression you get of them?
I get what you're saying, but it's just, I can't listen to it like that. It exists by itself as a piece of music, and by itself there are some really good songs on it.
Did you think this album
it's not
sounded perverted?
It doesn't sound finished. I mean, like the lyrics
are
some pretty
filth,
naughty lyrics in there, but he's known for that, isn't he?
But that's what I like. But equally, I love that because he's actually gone out there. He's quite brazenly. Like, no, he's the sort of guy who used to sleep with every Playboy model going. You know, he must have been like a midget in the sack. You know, he was a king swordsman, and I bet
he had a massive piece though.
He could have been known as a tripod, but he certainly brought it to this album.
Well, I don't think that's a testament to how good the album was.
What I mean to say is that it had a bit of like pizzazz about it. From like, he was clearly like pizzazz. He basically was given a Viagra, shoved into the recording studio with a guitar, and said record it, and that's what happened. True story, fact.
Right. So singing's really good. It's great, and I like the way sometimes it goes into almost like a scream. Like it goes into that sort of really like sort of raw emotion to it. Did you not find it's sometimes difficult with these albums, especially from the 80s, to get past the dated sound? Do you not find
I love the dated sound.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And also, I tend to latch onto any point of familiarity. So that there are 2 songs, Purple Rain and When the Doves Cry, that have been in films, that I've recognised. When the Doves Cry was covered in the old Romeo and Juliet, and I think it was on the radio a bit when that came out. And so I recognise that, so I kind of latch onto that, and that then becomes my access point for then considering the rest of the album. When the Doves Cry was quite an independent sounding song to the rest of it. So I listened to it once through, my brain kind of goes, oh, this is what we're going to look for in this. It's kind of a deep, sorrowful, soulful album. And then when it starts with Let's Go Crazy, on my second listen through, when I put a bit more effort into it, that then it kind of throws me a little bit, and I then struggle to get back into the narrative of the album, or get into the flow of it. So I felt that there was such a big step between some of the songs. But yeah, I struggled to enjoy this as an album. I felt it was more a collection of songs. With that and that inconsistency in it. And you had that again with Coldplay. It was quite a consistent album with quite a kind of it reminded me of, I don't know if you've read any of Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings has got this. I'm reading it now again.
and it's got a tone of sorrow for what was lost. It's heavily, but there's always references in it to, the things of thousands of years past and these ruins and people mentioning what was lost and people who've died and singing songs about, great heroes who were killed or whatever. And there's all this sorrow baked into a regret for the past. And then there were moments of beauty baked into it. And that was kind of how I felt about Coldplay. And then, they threw Yellow in and it was a bit inconsistent, but get past it. With this, I didn't feel there was any dominant theme in it. I felt that Let's Go Crazy and a couple of the other more upbeat songs just threw off the balance of the album.
Yeah.
And I don't know quite how to feel about it. I feel like it could have been maybe 2 great EPs rather than one.
Yeah.
Ooh,
I agree with
call.
that. It didn't flow. It didn't have a flow to it that a great album does have. It's a
Purple
consistent
Rain EP would have
consistency
been.
of sound.
Yeah.
Because I think Purple Rain, out of all of the songs on the album, Purple Rain is the song that fits in the least. Because it comes in with that guitar sound isn't anywhere else in the album. It's not anywhere.
Beautiful guitar.
It's such a great song, but that sound doesn't come from anywhere. It just you get the whole album and then you get this what feels like a completely different song tacked onto the end. And
Is that
it's a
live
great
as well?
song. I don't think it is live.
Is it one of the greatest album covers ever?
Wait, was he on a scooter or something?
There's a
You
big
know,
purple motorbike.
pinky purple motorbike in a alleyway with deep mood lighting with lots of steam
Well,
rising.
Yeah, it is quite cool.
Hello, I'm from the podcast party.
What are your parties?
Oh, mediocrity.
I think we're not really in agreement. So maybe Chris and I think it's a bit scatty. Simon, you think
I
it's
would
got a bit
agree
more?
with the scatty. I mean, it clearly has a couple of tracks on it which are not as punchy as the singles, as you say. But I think this gets a solid 4.5 from me. And it's only the half mark docked is because not every song is maybe quite as characterful. However, musicianship, performance, like creative flair, I love the soundtrack feel of any album. It is just, I think, if seeing this album, you can understand why he's considered a musical genius.
I liked it, didn't love it, so I'd probably give it 3, maybe 4 at a push. Probably solid
right,
3.
If it was a shorter album, would you have given it 4?
No, it wasn't to do with the length. It was to do with the consistency and the musical quality. He's very talented, and you can tell that from the album, but it just felt incomplete.
Sacred cows and nothing sacred here.
Yeah, I hate to say, but I'm in agreement again with you, Danny. As you said the other day, I can't help but think about Jack Nicholson dancing on a float, throwing money out in the Batman movie. Like there's a dated sound to it. Some great albums you can listen to and you wouldn't be able to put them in a decade because they just sound eternally relevant. Whereas that sounded very 80s.
Yeah.
A little bit of an inconsistency in it, but some great songs. So yeah, scoring it within the context of 1001. Probably 3.5. Yeah.
I think if you think about a song, a sound of its time, but it's not dateable, I would say Cars by Gary Newman fits into that. Because it's very much of its time, but it still sounds so good today. And you wouldn't think, oh, that's 70s.
I put that
80s,
in one of the greatest riffs of all time.
It's really good. Gets the people going. But yeah, that's great. All right, cool. So, Purple Rain, it is what it is. It's not great, not terrible. 3.6 Ronken.
Thought I listened to a podcast, I chose this one. I don't think I like this podcast. I'm gonna make myself some toast. And now I'm listening to the silence while I'm eating jam on toast. I can't stand this podcast anymore. And now I'm listening to the silence. I finished all my toast. I can't stand this podcast.
So Jam, third studio album by British band The Jam, released in 1978. Their second album didn't do well commercially, and they returned to the studio to write a new album. They wrote an album, then they scrapped the album and wrote a whole new album
of which this All Mod Cons is the result.
So I'm going to go straight in because obviously Simon's going to say it's great.
Yeah.
And I'm going to start off and do exactly what he did to me with Coldplay and say it was just nothing. I listened to it. I was pleasantly... So I've not really listened to much of the Jam before. And I definitely had a preconception of what they were going to be. I certainly thought it was going to be more punk than it was. And I know it's not punk, I know it's mod. I know it's before that whole thing kicked off. But you can sort of see where punk came from out of it. So I thought it was more musical than I expected it to be, which is a positive. But I couldn't say there was anything great on it. The standout song for me was English Rose, just because it didn't sound like all of the other songs. I found it just a little bland and uninspiring.
I kind of agree with you in some ways, in the respect that, I mean, I remember listening to Sam quite a long time ago, and I did love it. Upon listening to it again, it probably, obviously the number of singles they had was quite a few. They're one of those bands where they, like the Beatles, probably like the Stone Roses and Oasis, like all of their singles, their B-sides were just as good, just as famous. Like they even released an album of their B-sides. They were so good. The thing I get from this album, though, is like some of the best songwriters probably in British musical history, like Morrissey, like Elvis Costello, they have that kind of picture painting, storytelling that runs through the entire album. Same with maybe Billy Bragg as well. You get a real sense of like an atmosphere, or a story, or a time, and what they were feeling around it and about it. And I get that a lot from his music. So if you look at things like Down at the Tube Station at Midnight, which is undoubtedly for me the song on the album.
I agree.
It has everything you want from like a British punk rock song. It's got like really attacking, aggressive guitar sounds, but it's stripped down. There's a three-piece band, and you can just hear the energy that they would have played with on stage, but in a smart suit. So it has that kind of slightly more mature, above the realms of punk sound, because punk, in my opinion, was a little bit petulant.
Yeah.
But it had elements of punk, had elements of mod, but it was just that a little bit more refined in that, a bit more finesse. And things like Down the Tube Station at Midnight or A-Bomb in Wardour Street were just like, you kind of want to hear them shouting, "Revolution!" But equally, you've also got them having a little bit of sense of self-reflection on that. But then, as you say, English Rose, what a different song. So for an album of 2 to 3 minute songs, which is like some of the best punk songs are, it still made all of those statements within it, and it has that. I still think it has quite a lot of range as an album. Maybe not to the same extent like something like Led Zeppelin would have, but it was short, fast, punchy. A lot of songs you could remember and sing back, I think.
I don't think there are a lot of songs you could sing back. I found it. I listened to it all, and I just didn't want to listen to it again. And I couldn't. And on listening to it the first time, I couldn't sing you back any of the songs.
Is this one of those bands where you would love to listen to the best of, but any one album?
No, I wouldn't want to listen to any more of the Jam. Chris?
I didn't. I think I enjoyed it more than you did. I found it interesting. I didn't have any strong feelings about it. I enjoyed it. I wouldn't go out and buy it and keep it, but there were some songs that I found interesting, and it's funny in it how they had political commentaries in the album, and so Mr. Clean is a song about rich people who live a privileged life, and he doesn't want anything to do with them.
Or skinheads down in the
and
tube station.
Or equally, the other end of the scale, you've got right wing skinheads, down in the tube station kicking people in, and.
But Paul Weller was someone who loved the idea of the city. He loved the big, the bright lights and all the commotion, the atmosphere, and you get a great sense that he'd probably seen something of that type when he was younger, and he wanted to sing about it. And he was from a very suburban, boring area of the world, and every time he went to London, he became like a different person. And you can hear he loved the romanticism of the city, and he sung about that greatly. And I think there's something in that album which makes that great. But equally, maybe it's a bit of a one-trick pony, possibly, and hence why you felt it was a little bit similar.
Yeah.
I like listening to punk, and I'm more of a I had a big long ska period in my 20s where I got really. I mean, there was a period of time that lasted several years where I would have told you my favourite band were Real Big Fish.
Did you take some antibiotics or something and then?
And then drink, and that's not stop. Yeah,
Just like happy music, mate. So.
yeah. I've matured from that, but it was around the same time that I decided that what's his name, Billy Madison, that actor,
Adam Sandler.
Adam Sandler was the greatest thing ever committed to film. I had.
To be fair, there's no one else quite like Adam Sandler.
There is that.
Thank goodness.
Give you that.
Yeah.
He's certainly got his market.
He has, but sorry, that side.
Is it the Coldplay of films?
Absolutely not. No. Don't be so rude about Coldplay.
Yeah, I've listened. There have been times in my life where I've listened to punk and ska, and this felt like I was doing a bit of like historical research. Like I was looking into something that is not. This is not the thing that I go to. It's not got enough aggression or enough energy or enough bounce to it for any one of those moods. You know, if I go to ska, I want something that's going to like amp me up and make me feel happy, and it's got a bit of excitement to it. Or you can have some a bit more hardcore that's got a bit of aggression and a bit more cutting, and or you've got some punk that's just a bit like you just want to. 3-chord punk.
I guess you don't feel if you went to a punk gig back in the day, like the 77, 78 era. I imagine you'd have a genuine fear if you weren't like a punk person. You'd have a genuine fear you weren't going to make it out of the pub with all your teeth. I don't get the sense of that from this band. I think I love them for other reasons because I do love the Gen, but I don't. If you're looking for that type of punk, I think you should look elsewhere.
Yeah, it just felt like a nice, clean, middle of the road. There were some interesting songs, some social commentary in there, but it just didn't do any one thing. It was just like you say about the clean suits. It was like punk in a clean suit with maybe a bit too much pop for me and a bit too much trailers. But I could see the historical relevance, and I'm sure it has interwoven history and inspiration to other bands that I do listen to. And if the Jam weren't the Jam and they hadn't existed, maybe those bands that I do like and listen to wouldn't have got to where they were. Not necessarily Real Big Fish, but others. And it's interesting. But I just felt like I was spending an afternoon in the library reading an old book about the 80s, something. but it was interesting. It was an interesting book. But it's just one that I'm going to return to the library and probably
never speak about again.
Yeah. So I'll give it a 3, a respectful 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Down in the Tube Midnight. I thought it was quite an interesting song. I liked that.
I give it a 4 because it's not as good as I remember. Maybe in my impressionable youth that I was more enchanted by it, but I still think it has some stand-up moments which puts it squarely above other songwriters of the day.
Good morning. I'd like a podcast, please.
Oh, yes, what size?
Fucking huge.
I have just the thing.
So you give it a Chris, you give it a
3. Yeah.
Simon, you give it a 4, and I'd probably give it a 2.
Oh, interesting.
Not because it didn't offend me, but I wouldn't listen to it again, and it was not so bad as a 1 where I would actively go out and tell people not to listen to it.
I think that's our first 2, possibly.
No, Coldplay I gave it 2.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Which I'm going to edit out.
I think
I'm doing impression of your voice. I'll say
Make it a 5.
I think Miseducation got 2 as well. For me.
Okay. I've not given any 2. I was thinking actually just before you gave it's great. What's the first 2 I'm going to give, because I can throw out a 1 very easily to something that I think is shit. Throw out a 5 easily to something that's great, and then a 3 and a 4 they're kind of how do I feel about it? But a 2 is an interesting. A 2's not good. A 2's bad, but it's not.
It's not a 1.
Junkyard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a 1. So the
shorthand for 1. Yeah.
Or Bitches Brew is. Didn't you give Bitches Brew a 2?
I can't.
I gave it a 2.
I thought.
In fact, we've given quite a few 2s out. I think this is actually.
Oh, okay. Well, I've not. I thought I'd not given any, but yeah, 5s and 2s. The interesting. That's where all the action is. Oh, these fart sounds, by the way, are Simon's chair.
I think
I'm on the leather chair.
What was it you said to me the other day? The lady does protest too much.
I've not said that to you ever.
Yes, you did. You said that in episode 2 because the dog kept farting at me. The dog was sat on your lap with its ass faced at me, and it kept making these little like not proper farts that you would expect, like a. It was more like a release of gas. But yeah, so it was basically because it was pointed directly at my nose. Every time your dog farted, it went straight to my nose. So there wasn't even a delay. It was like, and I could smell it straight away.
It's funny you're bringing this up again.
It was aggressive.
You doth protest.
And then you said, the lady doth protest too much.
So what would you recommend our listeners go and do after listening to those 3 albums?
I think they should go and jam some Coldplay in their Prince.
I think they should go and eat a steak to feel manly again.
I think they should go out in the purple rain, eat some toast, and feel cold, and maybe play
with themselves.
Or with us.
Over 60s.
No, nothing at all. Over 60s. Goodbye.
Goodbye.